Okay. Hi, I'm Holly McKenna, a host of the APL Literary Legend Show. Today we have our third literary legend with us today. It's Paul Grondahl. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Holly. It's nice to be here.
It's great.
It's a great honor.
Well, we're very excited to honor you, and we look forward to doing that at the Pine Hills Library on November 15th.
Yeah, I'm hearing great things, and you and Libby Post doing really wonderful work. I commend you for that. And I will say I saw Bill Kennedy at a Writers Institute event last week, and he came up to me and stuck out his hand and kind of coyly said, "Hello, legend." So I went over to see Amy and say, "Amy, you're a legend."
Yeah.
I said, "I used to be a legend in my own mind, but I guess,
But now you are in reality.
I guess so.
So, no, but we think you do great work writing features for the Times Union, book writer. You're just always everywhere. Women's Club, I'm a member of that, and you popped up there, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk to him today, so I probably don't need to go to that, but you are a circulator in terms of getting out there, and we want to recognize your achievements, and you write about cool stuff about Albany. We have this wonderful new set, which I didn't acknowledge during the last taping, but just great. Samson work is known, and we just love it. So it really adds to.
I mean, I'm an outsider. I came here in 1981, and been learning writing about Albany history ever since. And a big part of it is here in this building. The public library has a great collection, a vertical file of clippings, things that we can't always find in our own morgue or elsewhere, and also a really nice collection of rare, hard-to-find reference books on the history of Albany. So it's called the Prine Room here. It's a really good resource.
Love that room. I was hoping you were talking about the Prine Room.
I wasn't around. I've just seen pictures, but Bill Kennedy and people who've been part of Albany for a long time talk about the Prine Library. You've seen pictures of that. I mean, so this history is here in this building and in this city, and this is a great repository for it.
I'm an outsider as well, and I've been here for 28 years. I love Albany. Love it, love it, love it. Yep. And so much, and that being part of the library now has been my expression of how much I love Albany. So
that's great.
And the gala is our fundraising and our raising awareness about the library, and we want to do. It was Libby's idea with the letters, recognizing arts and letters, and we know so many authors personally, that it's
neighbors,
name dropper. I know them, and we have fun, But it's and everyone's connected. Like we came up with a great idea, which I'll share with you later, how we're going to promote this, and it's basically going to be you guys interviewing each other.
Oh, good. I mean, it's
I just have to run it by Tracy at the TU.
It's nice to be on the ground floor. You and Libby and your colleagues are starting something that will just keep growing, which is really nice. And it's always hard to be the first to do the hard work, but now once you've done it, it'll be easier as years go by.
Yeah, no, it's been fun to actually get that together. So every year we're going to recognize different people in our community.
Great.
I mean, we have Gregory McGuire. I mean, it's really like off the top of our head, we can think of 12 people that we got to recognize, pretty quickly.
It's a good pool of writing talent.
And it brings in different people. We're going to have a silent auction, so that the showcase a lot of our businesses. It's kind of like a Go Albany. Very excited about having Mayor Sheehan as our honorary co-chair, and her husband Bob. And other, state senators and assembly people. So that was how it got started, and then other people filled in. So it is a real effort to get people to really raise the awareness about the public library.
You're sort of in a literary epicenter over there off of New Scotland Avenue.
Well, that's right. Dennis
all the cool
Gaffney,
people live
all the
over
people
there,
live
as
there.
far as I know.
Yeah, and we've talked about Dennis and I served on the board together, Dennis Gaffney, and the library board, and we were always talking about this because we have this. We always talk about a writers group, and we never got around to doing that. But now it's like this has been our work with the library has been an extension of that. So it's just just getting your books on the shelves at the library, getting them promoted, talking about
and you guys have a beautiful renovated branch there. I mean, tremendous work that the group did a few years ago.
That was before my time. I mean, I came on just as we were dedicating them, but they are wonderful. And the gala will be at the Pine Hills, which is I love it because it's 2 floors with a big grand staircase.
I used to bring my daughter there since before she could walk. We used to live 2 blocks from there. And it's a great library. Yeah,
we're very excited, and we have art there now, so that's another thing. We'll have new art. We have a new art program through the library. So there's always art on the walls, and it's just become the libraries are placed, they've become community centers for people.
Yeah, they have. I've written some stories, especially when the recession hit. People would go there for help with resume writing, to use free internet, people who don't have the money to pay for internet connection. It's really become a community source. it's changed since I was a little kid. You brought your card, you checked out a library book, and that was about all they did, circulated books. But now it's everything.
So much more, and ebooks, and we've gotten into so many different things. So and it's open to everybody.
Right.
It's open to everyone. We don't discriminate at all. So I'm
Right.
excited about that. So speaking of books,
Yes.
love to hear what you're working on. Actually, I should have brought your book.
Yeah, the book called These Exalted Acres. It's a history of Albany Rural Cemetery, which is in microcosm a history of Albany and the area. Anyone who was anyone, from the most powerful politicians to the lowliest people, were buried there. In fact, in the 18th century, when people were buried in the core of downtown, behind the churches, then they were eventually moved to near where Washington Park is today.
Okay.
And then Albany Rural Cemetery was founded in 1841. And it's this beautiful idyllic with paths and wooded areas and ravines and streams. And people saw it became very popular in the mid-19th century and Victorian era. And then all the great urban parks flowed out of that. Central Park in New York, Washington Park in Albany, were an urban park version of these rural cemeteries. And the rural cemeteries came out of people's response that it was really kind of demeaning just to dump people in overcrowded little church lots in the core of downtown. And they had public health issues with water supply and things. So there's a real interesting social history behind it. But the people buried there are, 55 mayors of the city of Albany and 3 or 4 governors, 1 president, President Chester Allen Arthur, 8 members of the presidential cabinets, including Lincoln intimates, and just an interesting place, 467 acres on the historic register. So this book tells a story of 50 really interesting people and the history of that cemetery. And when you kind of read through it, it's the history of Albany in a way. And the monuments there are spectacular. The building behind us, the SUNY Central building that we see here, Marcus T. Reynolds, I think the greatest architect in Albany history. He has designed many of the large monumental structures there. He's buried there. His brother, Kyler Reynolds, who was, I think, one of the greatest journalists and writers in Albany. He did a 10-plus volume Chronicles of Albany. He's buried there next to his brother. It's just a great place to learn Albany history and walk through this beautiful setting with world-class stone carving and monuments. So that was a project. The nice thing about that is it benefits the Times Union Hope Fund.
Very nice,
so we send disadvantaged kids to after-school and summer camp programs. So it's sort of doing a couple purposes, embracing and celebrating our history, and also helping kids get an opportunity, which the public library does a great job at its branches, and here in the main branch, helping kids with a love of reading, helping them improve their verbal and literary skills. So it's all kind of tied together. I think people who love words, either who for a living or just to read and appreciate them, there's a great force there, and the library is at the center of that.
Well, yeah, thank you. I feel like that. It is. It's just like it's exciting to be part of that and see all that goes on, and people. And it doesn't have to be people in Albany too. It could be anybody coming in to use them, and the programming that goes on. And it is. It's exciting, and I think it is. We're part of the force of what's going on in Albany. To kind of change things, move into the next. You've written about Mayor, one of the oldest serving mayors, right?
Mayor Rassus Corning. I did a biography on him. He actually brought this library here, where we're at on Washington Avenue. Somewhat controversial. He didn't save the historic Prine Library. The library also used to be in Harmonis Bleecker Hall, which is now office building. There used to be a great used bookstore. I don't know, you've been here 28 years. It was still there, the Bryn Mawr Bookshop.
Oh, sure, okay.
And it supported scholarships for local students to go to Bryn Mawr, and that was in the basement there. The Albany Library has a rich and long history here in the city, and I just wrote a story on Arbor Hill, got recognized as kind of an up-and-coming neighborhood, good things happening, artists moving there, preservation group, and they've got that beautiful library on Henry Johnson Boulevard.
First time in 45 years that we've had a branch there. So
and
it's very exciting.
I drive by there all the time. I'm often there for interviews, and I go in there, drive by. It's well used. There's a lot of people there, and to think that they didn't have a library for so long is too bad. But it's great that they have one now.
Yeah, I mean they have Halloween party there every year. Like 1,000 kids come and their families. I mean, it's such a, again, going back to the whole idea of community centers, and that's where libraries, I mean, people, unfortunately, there's people who poo-poo it, say, well, we have Google, what do we need a library for? And it's like, we're so much more. It's about the people. It's not about just about the books anymore. It's where people come together.
I've probably done 10 or 12 over the years here where you read and review a book for a group, and that audience, there's always, 75 to 125 people who come, and they do it every week here, these noon book reviews. They get a lot of people to review. That's just one program.
Right, to the friends. Right.
Exactly. So
3,000 programs a year they do in the libraries. Yep.
That's
in Albany
great.
Public Library, 3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, in all the different branches. So, and anytime we can tie in with a local author and a book, and especially the history, it's just like, Albany,
I'm really honored to be in this first group with William Kennedy. He was the first person I met in the city when I came here. I took a train across country, 4 days from Seattle, Tacoma, Washington, and ended up here on Labor Day, 1981. Decided to go up to campus, nobody around. I found the English department, one little light on, and I kind of like, hello, yeah, come on in, it's Bill Kennedy.
Wow.
Guys, he's always working, and got to know him, and he's been a mentor. He did the introduction to my first book, that biography of Mayor Corning, and I've gone to hundreds of the Writers Institute events, the great literary institution that he created.
So involved in that,
So, I mean, I sort of, lucky happenstance, met this great literary figure, and he's been really helpful, not just to me, but many, many young writers. He really helps people who are interested in becoming writers, and so I think Albany has got a great tradition of letters and words and books, and I'm just happy to be part of it.
We are too.
I do a lot of different things, biographies, articles, I do some teaching, and it's all comes down to, I mean, I knew early on I wanted to be some kind of writer. I loved reading. I was fascinated by just the mechanics and construction of great writers and words. And when you see someone at Bill Kennedy's level, and you see how he puts his sentences together, and I'm like, man, sometimes I feel like I've hit a sentence just right after working all week. It's like, that one sentence was really good. It was like what Hemingway said, write one true sentence, and it's a lot harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
So a lot of the thousands of words I produce every week, a lot of them are sort of mediocre. I try to make them really good. Newspapers, you're always battling time and space, not enough time, not enough space. I mean, you're a journalist, you know that. So when you get a chance to do something longer like a book, you can sort of air it out and stretch it out and create more scenes and take more time building the sense of place and character. So I've always wanted to write longer. I've always written long projects at the paper, and then I write books that people have said are too long sometimes too. But I'm trying to. This cemetery book is short.
That's a short one.
It's anyway. It's the old joke. As a freelancer, you get paid by the words, so you don't write with brevity. But anyway, I like to write a variety of things. People always say, like, why do you want to do that story? Some 90-year-old woman doing something. I said, because you learn something. Every day I go to work, I learn something. Sometimes there are horrible things where people commit horrible, heinous crimes and kill each other, but other times, as much as I can, they're uplifting about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, or somebody beating the odds with a disease or something. I love telling those stories because when you finish reading them, you go, hey, there's kind of something hopeful there, that everything's going to be okay. Somebody just beat the odds. Maybe I can too.
No, I totally agree. I was with my students. Find something that inspires people.
Right.
We can write about all that other stuff all the time, but that's not making anybody's lives any better.
Right.
So, but I just totally disagree with you in terms of mediocre writing. I think your stuff is always like, when I see your name on the paper, I got to read that story, no matter what it is, even if it's a bad, not bad story, but a bad, topic or something. Because
I still like the craft. I like the words, but it's always good to read really good writers. So I subscribe to the New Yorker, to the New York Times. When I read them, and then I read my own stuff the next day, I say, well, I got it pretty good here. I wish I had more time to work on that. When you see something, writing at Bill Kennedy's level, I don't think he ever wrote a bad sentence because he's written things for me like this introduction and things. And I said, Bill, I know you're busy. Just go ahead and not blow it off, but just sort of don't spend a lot of time on it if you want. He's incapable of that. He spends a lot of time. I've heard him do introductions and kind of occasional little toasts and things, and he will research it and write it and revise it. And I work with young student writers. I tell them the key is revision. You know, you teach writing too. It's nobody's good on their first draft. Shakespeare wasn't good on his first draft. It's that hard work of revising and revising. And that's why I met Bill Kennedy on a Labor Day weekend on a deserted campus.
I love it.
The only guy there. It's like, that's why you're good. It's hard work. I mean, I work long hours. All these books I've written are essentially on top of my other job. One, because I want to challenge myself and get better, but two, that's when you really have the time. So I've interviewed any famous writer you can name too, and I'm always asking them those questions of craft and things. And the bottom line, I interviewed Gregory Maguire, and everyone thinks, oh, Wicked was his overnight success. He ground out about 20 or 25 books with small, obscure publishers before he really hit his payday and his fame. So the only secret is hard work, an hour after hour in the chair in front of your computer, you know, building these words. I really look at it no different than a framer of a house or someone that has a skill. There's been court battles, you know, is journalism a craft or a profession? I really think it's a craft. I mean, my, you know, full disclosure is that I never took a journalism class. I came in through English literature major, and I work with students and colleagues who got a master's degree in journalism from Columbia University or very highly accredited universities, but you put them on a street after a horrible murder, and your degree and your textbook and your training doesn't help you. You have to be a real person. I've cried often on the jobs. I'm sitting there with a grieving parent who someone's child has just been killed. I'm going to go to like my textbook formula and things, you know.
So how to deal with this person.
I think just being a real person and an honest person goes a long way, and I think you can still learn the craft from doing it and doing it. I came to the paper in 1984 with just minor kind of experience, and they sat me next to Barney Fowler, who was this old-time legend. I mean, when I started in '84, a lot of reporters didn't have a college degree. Some didn't finish high school, and they were tremendous reporters. You know, I mean, you don't check Ernie Pyle's certificate or diploma at the door. You know, they don't really check. It's what you do on the page. And
that's so true.
I worked with some really talented, amazing journalists and writers over the years, and not a lot of them had advanced degrees. I happened to study English literature at Albany for a master's degree, just because they paid me essentially. I got a free graduate degree out of it. I worked in the news bureau. That's how I knew Gregory Maguire. I mean, Matt Maguire,
brother,
Gregory's
right?
actually his half-brother. And you know, I learned to do kind of public relations writing when I was there, and I've done some of that too. There's no shame in PR writing. I've ghostwritten books for people. It's nice to have a check at the end of it.
It's writing.
You know? So you've probably read the newspaper industry isn't doing that well, and book publishing isn't either. So you sort of have to mix and match and create a sustainable, livable wage somehow.
I love how you do the history, you know, especially if it's Albany.
Right.
One of my favorite books of yours is I Rose Like a Rocket.
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt. I mean,
probably
all,
just
you know, New York, homegrown guy, you know, Long Island to Albany to White House, and you know, the whole story of it in their Adirondacks, you know. I mean, that's just
and Ken Burns just spent 14 hours.
I just saw that.
You know, but he did a beautiful job. He weaved in Eleanor, Franklin, and Theodore, and their lives were intertwined, and they all were remarkable individuals. And I mean, I've interviewed him and met him, and he is a master at.
But you're on that show too. He interviews you for that show.
Yes. I'm everywhere. It's like, why are you there? Because I'm 30 years at the same job. People say.
And you wrote a book about Roosevelt.
I did. And I've studied local history, but it's funny. Like, why are you? Because there's not that many people left who've been at the paper 30 years. I started as a kid, and I look at myself. Now I'm the old geezer. I'm working with reporters my kids' age.
Interns.
That's what happens.
You know. No, well, that's great. So you got the Rest is Corny book under your belt. You got the Teddy Roosevelt book. You've got the your Royal Cemetery book, and
I've done several others. Some are with my name on them, some are ghostwriting. But the one I'm working on right now that I've started writing, done a lot of research, is a biography of Andy Rooney.
Very good.
Albany boy, grew up in the Pine Hills, went to Albany Academy. His big break, he was a really bad student. He went to Colgate University and got to his junior year, got drafted. He failed in the artillery assignment, but he could type, and he had some good English teachers at Albany Academy. So he joined the staff of the Stars and Stripes. No journalism experience, mind you. At the heart of World War II, D-Day, with the liberation of the concentration camps, he was there as a reporter in his early 20s for the Stars and Stripes. He saw it all, and he became best friends. His lifelong friend was Walter Cronkite, who was the reporter's reporter. He was United Press International bureau chief. Rooney also worked alongside Ernie Pyle, worked alongside all the great Homer Big Art, but the amazing guy that kind of took him under his wing and helped Andy become kind of a literary person was A.J. Liebling of the New Yorker, who seemed to, while he wasn't being almost killed in the shot at, seemed to find every fine bottle of wine and every good meal all across Europe. And Rooney wrote about that. And I spent 10 days a few months ago in his papers. They're at the University of Texas at Austin. Because Cronkite was a Texas graduate, and he got all his buddies from CBS. So that place at University of Texas Austin has Cronkite, Rooney, Reasoner, Safer, and some other people. So it's a treasure trove.
Yeah,
I mean, there's with Erastus Corning, I had about 90 boxes at the Albany Institute. And with Rooney, there's about 60, and I've gone through over half of them so far, and interviewing a lot of his family and contemporaries and things. And I knew him a little bit from the Times-Union. I did a long profile on him. I interviewed him over the years. Had a few cocktails with him and Kennedy a few times, but he's a character. He really is. So I'm enjoying that.
Good for you.
Yeah. There's always someone interesting to write about. I'm writing an obituary today on Ed Cowley, 89 years old, Battle of the Bulge, veteran, but a great artist, and really started the UAlbany Art Department. Lived in Altamont, helped save that railroad station, which is now their library.
Right.
He helped save a lot of the historic structures there. Lived up on the hill, had these great parties, and did an annual art show at his house. And unfortunately, he died Saturday. And I'm learning these great stories from his buddies. So you just, as a reporter, the more time and more people you talk to, the better story you can do. So here's this well-known artist, exhibited widely around the country. His stuff's in galleries and museums from New York to Chicago and things. But he was a great horseshoe player at the VFW Hall. And I talked to his buddy that played horseshoes with him. He had a horseshoe pit at his house and this thing. And horseshoes was a big part of his life. So you find these little facets, and he was a really interesting, prominent person in the art world. But in his little village, he was Ed, who played horseshoes and drank beers at the VFW Hall, and also helped save the railroad station and these historic structures.
Battle of the Bulge,
So there's people, you start sort of digging into their lives, and there's so much more than you really realize. I like biography because they're really extended human interest and feature stories.
They are just a longer form.
Exactly. So.
Great.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a book in that guy too.
Well, actually, I was talking to someone who had worked with him. She's the editor of the Altamont Enterprise, and I said, "Boy, you should write his story. It's a pretty amazing story." And she was actually his editor. He wrote a lot of columns. He became a big anti-war activist in the '60s on the UAlbany campus after he was in the heart of World War II, and she's known him and written a lot. Maybe she will do something on him. The question now is finding an audience for books. And I thought Andy Rooney, there would be a lot of interest, but we tried all the big commercial publishers and got nowhere. So we're happy to publish it with SUNY Press, but we thought there was a much wider audience. I mean, he had an audience of 10 million plus every Sunday on 60 Minutes. But it's a different world now.
What do you think it is? I know I hear this so often from people, and it's like, I don't know. It frustrates me because I look at what's sometimes out there, and I'm like, is it zombies and vampires?
That's what it is, and it's
like,
celebrity.
Oh my God.
So my daughter is in New York now. She's at Lincoln Center campus of Fordham, and last week she was all excited, huge crowd, but she got a seat up front to see Lena Dunham do her book signing.
Yeah. Not That Kind of Girl or something.
Right, she's huge. She's got her own show.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, she's the cover of the New York Times Magazine. She's got, 2 million Twitter followers. They call it the platform now. So if you are a celebrity or a personality who can bring, 500,000 Facebook followers and 2 million Twitter followers, and you put a book out, if you get 1% of that, you're a bestseller.
Yeah.
So publishers are now reaching out to these brands or these celebrities because they're in it to make money. They're not a charitable organization. They have to make a profit to keep alive.
Right, right.
And it's more and more of a challenge. So my daughter happily, bought her book and got it signed, and it's not something I would probably read, but I read, it was actually a full-page review of her book in the New York Times Book Review this Sunday, which I read. And that's sort of how it's changing. If you want to reach the younger people, my wife and other friends like, why are you writing about these old dead white guys, to be honest? Rastus Corning, Teddy Roosevelt, Andrew. I said, I don't know. It's because it's someone I think I could write about. The material is there. But you should be writing about Lena Dunham or, I don't know, these other stars of the day,
Yeah,
Jay-Z. Why not? I should have written Jay-Z's biography.
I know, but that goes
retire.
against our grain as reporters, that this whole, they glorify celebrities.
Right.
It's like that, like they're gods or something, and it's just like, they're just people.
But that's what I think would make
yeah,
a good story, to show how they got there.
Yeah.
Nobody's an overnight sensation.
Oh, yeah, like you said with Gregory.
I'm sure they worked and worked and worked. So, I wouldn't mind, if Jay-Z, if you need a ghostwriter or a biographer, man, give me a call.
There you go. I'll let you know if I know anybody looking for a ghostwriter. But it's frustrating. It is when you've got a good story and you're like, why don't they like it?
But you've been at it a long time. I'm in it for the long haul. I've seen things come and go, and But everyone wants to be on social media now. It's where not just kids. It's where I just interviewed an 87-year-old grandmother who's FaceTime, Twitter, Facebook.
All that stuff, right?
So it's spreading.
But this story, too, and it's something I always teach my students all the time. We just have a few more minutes left, so we can just ponder about this. And it's not even just a newspaper. I mean, I'm always talking to my students about, it's a story. It doesn't matter like where it's going to be. People thought newspapers were going to be killed with radio and TV and all. It's like everything's kind of reinventing itself. The story. And I just feel like so much the stories are just they're so contrived or so the same old thing, and they're not important stories. We got major world conflicts, we've got major problems in the world, and we're worried about what Lena Dunham has to say, and it's just it makes me nuts. It's like that's interesting, but that's not shouldn't be the big conversation.
I think there's time for both. It interests me if she can get a whatever market share and she can draw 15 million people to watch her show.
What is she doing for women, though? What is she doing for women, young women? Is she bringing them to feel better about themselves? We got major self-confidence issues.
I think she's getting into body issues and things.
I hope so.
I
think she is too. I think just from one of my daughters likes her. But I'm okay. I'm okay if you're bringing a good conversation to the table. But if it's just about you, like a Kardashian thing, or some of these other people, what are you doing to help others? And that's why I love about Bill Kennedy. It's like he's a famous writer, Pulitzer Prize-winning writer. He is helping other writers. And and his work inspires other people to do other things, write plays and operas and stuff. That's important. Not just for the pure piece of being a celebrity. It's like. Because they so superficial.
Will be
I can't stand it.
Tomorrow's news, they'll be rather yesterday's news. Absolutely. But I think you can't ignore when large groups of people are doing something. So I'm sort of paying attention.
Anyway, we'll fight the good fight. Keep writing.
Here's to our legends.
And we can promote each other's books.
Yes. Exactly.
And get all our friends, because we know so many writer friends. So,
but this is a great thing you're doing. I'm happy to be part of it. It's been a pleasure having
you on the show.
Thanks, Holly.
And just knowing you, and look forward to celebrating with you at the gala your fine achievements.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And that's it.
That's it.